ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्।
Jai Gurudev. So yesterday we saw this analysis of existence and non-existence. We saw that there are three aspects: Sat, Asat and Tuchha. Right? This was the verse 16. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha, ubhayorapi drishtuntaha, tvanayostattvadarshibhihi. For the unreal, mithya, there is never any being. For the real, there is never any non-being. The ultimate truth of both of these is seen by the knowers of the truth. This is a very important verse, even though cryptic. If you want me to repeat this whole thing, I will. Otherwise, we'll go to the one where we stopped. I will read this whole thing once again.
Yeah, Didi. Thank you.
Yeah. Asataha, for the unreal, mithya, bhavaha, being, na vidyate, is not there. Sataha, for the real, api, also, abhavaha, non-being, absence, na vidyate, is not there. Ubhayoho anayoho, of these two, the sat and asat, antaha, the ultimate truth, tattva darshibhihi, by the knowers of the truth, tu, indeed, drishtaha, is seen. असतः भावः न विद्यते सतः अपि अभावः न विद्यते उभयोः अनयोः अन्तः तत्त्वदर्शिभिः तु दृष्टः. For the unreal mithya, there is never any being. For the real, there is never any non being. The ultimate truth of both of these is seen by the knowers of the truth. This is a very important verse, even though cryptic. For the asat, a word we shall use as it is, there is no being, bhava. In other words, being is not there for the asat. And for the sat, there is no non being. In the second line of the verse, Krishna went on to say that this fact is known by those people who know the ultimate truth about Sat and Asat. The first line is the crux of the verse. Asat means something that does not exist independently, and Sat is what exists independent of anything else. What is it that exists independently? Cold and heat, for example, do not exist independently because they depend upon a number of factors. There is no absolute cold existing by itself. That something is cold depends upon something else. The temperature cannot reveal itself to you by itself unless you have a perception. Therefore, your perception is essential in order to understand that something is cold and something else is hot. When you say, "This is a pot," does the word pot reveal an object that exists by itself? Or does the object indicated by the word pot depend for its existence upon something else? I repeat this. When you say, "This is a pot," does the word pot reveal an object that exists by itself? Or does the object indicated by the word pot depend for its existence upon something else? If it depends on something else, clay, because of which the pot is there and unto which it will go back, that clay becomes the cause karana for the pot. The word pot has no real object outside of the word itself. It has no existence apart from clay. That which has a cause, that which depends upon something for its existence, that which does not independently exist, is called asat. Shankara explains asat further. When we try to prove the existence of things that are dependent upon causes for their existence, such as cold and heat or any given object, we find that there is no self existent thing at all among the objects of the world. Why? Because what is there is only a form, vikara, that keeps changing. Vyabhicharati. It is never the same, nor can it be the same. Shankara goes on to prove a point here. Suppose all pots are made of clay, but you have knowledge of only one pot. You know it is clay. If you know Satya, the truth, the cause Karana of all pots to be non dual clay, regardless of what form any or all pots assume, you know that they are nothing but this one clay. By knowing that one clay, you know all pots in the sense that they are not separate from the clay. Although this is a general knowledge, samanya jnana, of all pots as clay, and not the particular knowledge, vishesha jnana, of individual pots, it is knowledge of the whole. Then what is a pot? It is purely a name for a form. Other than this, there is no pot that exists separate from clay, nor is the clay the pot. If it were, again, you would not need to make the pot, the clay being there already. Therefore, the clay is not the pot. If you remove the clay, where is the pot? Is it anywhere? Is it something that you have to search for? No. All that is there for the name pot is a form recognized as such. Anything that is time bound like a pot will change, and you cannot stop it because its nature is to keep on changing. When and how are you going to stop it? Therefore, what are you crying for? What are you sad for? Are you sad for something eternal because it is eternal? No. Sat is that which never changes. It has no non existence, abhava at all. Sat is never negated at any time, whereas Asat never enjoys a being of its own. Therefore, Sat cannot create any sorrow for you, and Asat is incapable of doing so because it does not exist in its own right. How can Asat create sorrow? In the vision of the Veda, you are the Sat, and everything else is Asat. Asat cannot be a source of sorrow to Sat, and Sat cannot be a source of sorrow to you because it is you. The whole problem is one of confusion between Sat and Asat, between Atma and Anatma. Asat has no being, no bhava. It has no existence. Thus, it cannot be bhava, that which exists in all three periods of time. A thing that exists is bhava, and abhava is a thing that does not exist. The word bhava comes from the root bhu, used in the sense of existence. So there is a footnote for this we read yesterday, but I'll just repeat this. So this explanation, what is that? Asat is from the Chandogya Upanishad, where in one particular sentence it is said that before this creation there was only one thing, the Sat Vastu, which was non dual, one without a second, undifferentiated. Nothing else was there. From that Sat Vastu alone, called Brahman, everything has come and is non separate from it. Nothing exists apart from Sat. This knowledge was revealed in this Upanishad to Shvetaketu, who had been sent by his father to a Gurukula at the age of 12. He returned at the age of 24, very proud of his accomplishments, having studied the Vedas for 12 years. Shvetaketu's father was a great man. He could not stand his son's arrogance. So he asked his son, "Did you ask your teacher for that knowledge, gaining which everything is known?" The boy replied that he did not think his teacher knew this. Later, he asked his father if there was such a knowledge. And he said, "How can you know one thing and thereby know everything else? If there is such a knowledge, please teach me, O Lord." The same topic is discussed in the Mundakopanishad. The only difference being that there the student asked this question to the teacher, whereas in the Chandogya Upanishad, the father asked Shvetaketu, who said he didn't know. Then Shvetaketu asked his father to teach him. So, Sat is that which does not depend on anything for its existence, and it is you, it is me, it is whole. It cannot be the cause for sorrow. Asat is that which depends on something else for its existence. Asat is something that has a cause. Sat is the cause of everything. And because Asat has no being of its own, it cannot also be the cause for sorrow. Analysis of existence and non existence. Tuchya is another word for abhava and refers to certain combinations that do not exist at all. For example, man's horn, Manushya Shringa, does not exist. Horn exists and man exists. Both are bhava, both exist. For these words, there are objects in the world which I know exist. But when I combine the two as man's horn, there is no such thing. Does the word asat in the verse mean tuchya, non existent? No, because it is unnecessary to say that something that is non existent has no being. In some modern commentaries on the Gita, however, we do find asat being translated as and equated to non existent. What purpose is served by the sentence, the non existent, such as the man's horn has no existence? No purpose is served by the sentence. That which we refer to as asat has an order of reality, which is neither satya, bhava, nor tuchya. There is another type of abhava between these two, a non existence that we call asat here. For instance, we cannot dismiss the sense organs and sense objects as totally non existent tuchya. Are they then sat? Let us analyze them. A sense organ cannot be called a sense organ unless it perceives something. Eyes are a sense organ only because they see a form. Ears are a sense organ because they hear a sound. And the senses of smell, taste, and touch are all called sense organs because they contact their sense objects. How can you call eyes a sense organ if they do not see? If ears do not hear, there is no sense organ, even though the ear lobes may be used for hearings or for catching hold of someone. The ear lobes, etc., are just the anatomical aspects of the sense called hearing. It is hearing that makes the ears a sense organ, and there is no such thing as sound without the ears. Which establishes what? To establish the existence of one, we need to establish the existence of the other. So, for instance, here to establish the existence of sound, you need to establish the existence of the ear, which is a sense organ of hearing. When establishing the existence of either one, which depends on establishing the existence of the other, there must be some other basis for the existence of both. Thus, all of them depend on something that is self existent called Sat. So, in this case, both sound and ears have to have some other basis for both their existence. Thus, all of them depend on something that is self existent called Sat. Because we cannot dismiss the sense organs and their sense objects as non existent, we say they are Asat. They are not totally non existent. That is Atyanta Abhava. The sense organs and the sense objects do exist. All the responses of pleasure and pain, Sukha and Dukkha exist. You cannot dismiss them as non existent, nor can you take them as independently existent. Therefore, for something that cannot be dismissed as non existent, tuchya, and cannot be taken as independently existent, sat, we have to have a word and that word is asat. Another word for asat is mithya. Asat or mithya is that which has no bhava, that which depends upon sat. Only when there is sat is asat possible. Therefore, mithya or asat is something whose existence depends upon another thing, and because it has no independent existence, it is not separate from that upon which it depends. Objects do not exist independently. When a pot is made, before it is baked, there is only clay. Thus, once upon a time, the pot was clay. When it became a pot, it was clay in the form of pot. Even though it has been fired, it is nothing but clay. All that has happened is that the clay now has an added attribute guna, the pot form. This added attribute is what is meant by creation. Creative possibilities are there, but there is no such thing as a clay pot without clay. When we look at anything in this world, we always find that it is a form with a name, depending on some other substantive vastu. A particular form, rupa, is called asat. It has the nature of its substantive, but in itself has no bhava. By the time you see an object, it has already changed. It is never the same in the next moment. It is like seeing a film projected on a white screen. It looks as though someone is standing there, but in fact, the frame is continuously changing. Similarly, the frame in one's mind keeps on changing, exactly like the film. This is what makes it possible for us to see motion. Because what you have seen is already gone, and you do not see it again in the same form, an object has no real bhava. I repeat this one. Because what you have seen is already gone, and you do not see it again in the same form, an object has no real bhava. In a flowing river, you do not get the same water at the same place. It is over, gone, flowing constantly in the flow of time. Similarly, any perception we have is conditioned by time and therefore has the nature of being merely an appearance. Any perception we have is conditioned by time and therefore has the nature of being merely an appearance. It is as though there and not really there because it is always changing. It is as though all the time. All objects in the world are time bound. When you see an object, that object is not seen by you as an independent object. You always see something along with it. You always see some other thing along with it. When you see a shirt, for example, you also see cloth, and when you see the cloth, you see a particular material. Thus, when you find that the shirt has no existence apart from its cause, karana, the cloth, not only can you not create a shirt without cloth, you cannot imagine one either. Cloth here refers to any material with which the shirt is made. Without cloth, paper, or some other material, it is impossible to make a shirt. even in your imagination. You can imagine an elephant entering your ear by seeing yourself as very big, but you cannot imagine making a shirt without cloth. No object exists by itself apart from its cause. An object that does not exist independent of something else cannot have the word Sat imputed to it. It can only be called Asat because Sat will be the one upon which the object depends for its bhava. If I remove the cloth, can you wear the shirt? All you will have is the emperor's clothes. There is no such thing as shirt without the material with which it is made. For the word shirt, there is no corresponding object at all. Bhava means it must independently exist. And because, just a second. So, bhava means it must independently exist. And because the cloth is the bhava, the shirt has no independent substantive status. Nor can you say the cloth with which the shirt is made is Sat, because it too depends upon something else. Then, what is real Sat? That which exists by its own glory and does not depend on anything else for its existence is called Sat or Satya. Just because something is a cause does not mean it is Satya. Cause Causes themselves depend on their causes and therefore are also asat. So when you go on dissecting the cause behind the cause, so the cause for the shirt is the cloth, and the cause for the cloth is the cotton. And you go on. What is the cotton? Molecules and atoms. And what is the atom? So when you go on dissecting it, you'll come to a point where you just have the isness. We'll see how it is derived. Why do we see the Sat in the Asat? If everything is Asat, how is it that we see the world as real as Sat? We say the world is. We do not look at it as something that is not. This is because in every perception there are two buddhis. Here, buddhi means knowledge, cognition. One buddhi is with reference to the object, and the other is with reference to its asat buddhi, the is not buddhi. This is not buddhi has to be explained. The problem is that we take the is not as is and get confused. This confusion leads to sukha and dukkha. When we see a pot, there is a pot buddhi, pot cognition, and we say the pot is. That buddhi, cognition, whose object is the pot, undergoes a change similar to the changing frame in a moving film. It is this buddhi that is called asat buddhi. That which does not undergo a change is called sat buddhi. Suppose the pot you are looking at is replaced by another object, a tree. The pot is gone and the tree is there in its place. Previously, we said the pot is, and now we say the tree is. If we analyze these two cognitions, we can see
that the is buddhi never goes. The pot goes because it is asat, and the sat that is always there is now with the tree. When the tree buddhi goes, branch buddhi may be there, and when the branch buddhi is gone, leaf buddhi is there. When the leaf buddhi is gone, chlorophyll buddhi is there, and when the chlorophyll buddhi is gone, particle buddhi is there. When particle buddhi is gone, whatever buddhi that is left will still be there. What is it that remains? Sat. That is always there. Is always is. Therefore, it is called Sat, that which does not change. Whereas the object whose buddhi changes is called Asat. The object is Asat because the buddhi keeps changing. We recognize it differently each time it changes. In every perception, then there are two buddhis, the object buddhi and the is buddhi. When we say blue pot, Neela Gataha, both words indicate the same object. The object that is blue is pot, and object that is pot is blue. Similarly, when I say, please meet Mr. So and so, the musician, both Mr. So and so and the musician are one and the same object. When we say Arjunaha Pandavaha, there is only one person, Arjuna, and he is a Pandava. In all these situations, there is a substantive adjective relationship. The word blue is an adjective to the pot in the expression blue pot. However, this is not so when we say the existent pot or this is a pot. Here it seems as though the isness is an adjective to the pot. It is not correct. The pot is the adjective to existence. The potness qualifies isness. Here there is Sat Buddhi, meaning that the pot exists, and there is also Pot Buddhi, that is the object Buddhi, which are two different things. To say this is a pot definitely implies isness, since the word is used. There are therefore always two buddhis, Sat Buddhi and Asat Buddhi, object Buddhi. Only Asat Buddhi, object Buddhi changes, meaning that the existent Sat Buddhi is conditioned by an object as its attribute. Is always there. When the tree is in the form of a tree. Similarly, is can be in the form of a pot, a person, a nose, a body, or anything. Existence is also in the form of thought. Therefore, if there is no thought, what is there is existence minus thought. Existence minus the body. Existence minus the world is existence. That existence Sat is always there, not affected by any addition to or subtraction from it. Let me know if you want me to repeat, or I'll go further and then, required, we'll repeat this again. I will read the Sat Buddhi. The is Buddhi always remains. The way in which the Sat Buddhi is conditioned is what undergoes change, whereas the Sat Buddhi itself never changes. Therefore, Shankara says in his Bhashya that the object of the thought, this is a pot, is Asat because it is always changing. It never remains the same. The Sat Buddhi, on the other hand, is Satya because whatever that Sat is, it does not undergo any change. A doubt being possible here, Shankara clarifies the point in the Bhashya by raising and answering an objection. Purva Paksha. Suppose a pot is gone, destroyed, and the pot buddhi, ghata buddhi is gone. You say, the pot was, and now the pot is no more. The pot being destroyed, the pot buddhi goes, and the pot proves to be asat. But along with the destroyed pot, does not the is buddhi, sat buddhi also go? Shankara's response is that the is buddhi never goes. Is always there. We say the pot is destroyed. The destroyed pot is. The pot is no more, etc. Because something else is. The is buddhi never goes. Only the conditioned sat buddhi is gone. The sat buddhi, the exists buddhi, is conditioned by a particular name and form, nama rupa. And when the pot is destroyed, that nama rupa is gone, but the sat buddhi is not gone. It is there to join anything. The is buddhi can join the broken pot. The broken pot is, or anything else is. Only asat keeps on changing. The varieties of objects seen by you keep on changing, while you remain the same person. That is, existence remains, it never goes away. If this aspect of the teaching is not clear, you could conclude that Atma, the Sat Vastu, is zero. The Atma alone is, and everything else is Nama Rupa, only an addition to that Sat Buddhi, an addition that does not bring about any addition. Just as the pot form does not bring about an addition to the clay, so too the addition of a Nama Rupa to the Sat Buddhi does not bring about any change to it. This is the vision. The Sat Buddhi is always qualified by an attribute is in the form of a tree, is in the form of a pot, is in the form of something, and that form keeps on changing. That which changes is asat, mithya, whereas sat remains ever the same. And what is that sat? Sat buddhi is existence, consciousness. Sat chit, existence is consciousness. Consciousness, the sat buddhi, always joins with something in the form of knowledge and reveals. For example, the pot is. When the pot is gone, the tree is. When the tree is gone, something else is. When everything is gone, I am. Aham asmi. I think we'll stop here and do Manana, or I can just continue. Let me know if you want me to repeat this, you want to share something.
Hariom, you can give the gist like in a uh, short way, though it is very descriptive, but you can just.
So we have seen the three words, right? The difference between Sat, Asat, and Tucha. Asat is
So,
something that depends on its existence for something else, upon something else. And Sat is that which exists independently. And Tucha is something which is non existent, that is Atyanta Abhava, like the man's horn. Right? So, and the sense organs, in order to be called a sense organ, is dependent on something else. It's dependent on the ability of its being able to hear or perceive sound. That is when it is called a ear or a sense organ of hearing. But both of these, sound does not exist independently of the ear. If there is no one to hear, then how can you call sound sound? So all the pairs of opposites, all those that we perceive, require a person or a thing that perceives the object, perceives them. Like, for example, cold and heat. How would you say cold, cold? It's only when you can feel it. You need the skin with all its nerves and sensory sensory receptors to perceive that cold. There is no absolute cold. So, therefore, the whole creation with its world of opposites is dependent on something else. And what is that something? Is Sat, that isness, that is existence. So, therefore, objects do not exist independently.
But then you said with the Nama Rupa, what we see is the Sat, right? That or that's not
Namarupa
Sat.
is that which changes. See, in the example of the clay and the pot, pot is only Namarupa for the clay.
The clay, yeah.
So, in the pot, you can destroy the pot. When the pot is gone, the clay does not go.
The yeastness is there.
The isness is there.
Yeah, the clay is there. Yeah.
So, Namarupa is something changing.
So the Sat is basically given to the yeastness, right? So Asat is not existing independently. What is the other one you said? I didn't get that one.
Tucha.
But
Tucha is not.
see, the Asat exists, okay, but cannot exist independently. It needs support of the Sat, isness, okay. But Tucha, it doesn't exist at all. Tucha is, it doesn't exist at all. So what we think is Mithya or the Asat. If world is there, and how we can say it is Mithya? That is what we always say, no? It is there, that easiness is there. Because of that easiness, the world exists. Because of the clay, the pot exists. Even though if pot is broken, clay exists. Asat doesn't mean that non-existent, no. Tucha means not existent at all, like man's horn. Man exists, horn also exists. But man's horn doesn't exist. So these three, very, very beautifully explained, very nicely. But this asat exists, it cannot independently exist. It has to depend on ease. But ease is ease. It just exists. It doesn't change. Clay is clay. Clay doesn't change. Only the nama rupa of the pot. Pot can be round, pot can be square, pot can be colored, pot can be many things. Narrow, tube, that, this, etc. So that changes, that nama rupa changes. But clay remains. Even though that pot is destroyed, clay remains. We cannot say pot doesn't exist or the clay doesn't exist, but pot is not there. That bhava is not there. That nama rupa is not there. Tucha means it doesn't exist at all. That's it. Jai Guru.
He said with clay, different type of pots get created. So in creation also with a different now name form gets created. The creation happens.
That creation is not independent. It has to depend on that is.
Now with only that Satvastu, it is happening.
That Sat is existing, common. Only that Rama Rupa changes. That what we say creation, that changes. It has no basis. It cannot be independent. That creation cannot be independent. It has to have that Sat in it to exist. Only the Nama Rupa changes, and that is Asat.
See, like in the example, he says when you see an object, it is not just the object you see something along with it. Like, for instance, you see a shirt, it is not just the shirt you see the cloth along with the shirt. The cloth becomes the karana. Otherwise, it becomes like the emperor's clothes. You remember that story of the emperor's clothes where that tailor comes and I think the emperor wants to get his I think he wants the most beautiful he wants to wear the most beautiful clothes that nobody else has. And then this tailor comes and he says, I can see these beautiful clothes on you. And it is, the emperor starts believing that he's not able to see those clothes, but the clever tailor tells him, he keeps describing something which is not there, and he tells him that these are, you're wearing these clothes and it's so beautiful. So that is, if you see a shirt without the cloth, it becomes like the emperor's clothes. But that does not happen. An object that does not exist independent of something else cannot have the word Sat imputed to it. If I remove the cloth, can you wear the shirt? All you will have is the emperor's clothes. So therefore, there is no such thing as shirt without the material with which it is made. That is why we see Sat in Asat. We say the pot is. And when the thought of the pot goes and the tree thought comes in, we say the tree is. So that isness is attributed to an object. And what keeps changing in the frame in our mind is the thought. The thought of different objects keeps on, just like how in a movie the frame keeps changing. We keep getting different thoughts, but what underlying remains is that isness. So without Sat, we cannot see Asat. Asat depends on its existence for Sat. Like in deep sleep and being awake. So in the waking state, the whole world is. It is visible to you, the visible world. But in your deep sleep, although the world is not there, what is there is your isness remains. So upon Sat, the whole Asat depends upon. So why do we see the Sat in the Asat? If everything is Asat, how is it that we could see the world as real as Sat? This is because there are two buddhis. Swamiji explained how there is this is buddhi and is not buddhi. The problem is that we take the is not as is and get confused. We take the world which is not to be is, to be real. We take the jagat which is mithya to be satya. And that is where is the confusion. Whereas what Vedanta tells us is Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya.
But you see it asat because you are sat. Because you are there. You.
Yeah, ultimately it boils down to you, no? So that is where you go on dissecting it. So what happens? You ultimately end up with aham asmi, the isness. Where is that?
Then it comes to only you exist.
Yeah.
I am.
Existence is also in the form of thought. Therefore, if there is no thought, what is there is existence minus thought. This is what happens in our deep sleep. There are no thoughts, but existence continues. Existence minus the body, existence minus the world is existence. That existence, Sat, is always there, not affected by any condition, any addition to or subtraction from it. Here we remember the Purna mantra. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. So that Sat is Purna, is whole. No addition, subtraction from it will change it. It remains whole. The is
And he
Buddha.
said, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
He said asat is changing every moment, and he told about the movie how it happens. The every moment that the screen is changing, so we feel as a motion. So that asat is also changing with the time.
Yeah.
Hariom. So there are three words, asat, tuchya, and mithya for the same non-existence, right?
Uh, mm, Asat is not really non-existent. It is as though
As though it is there, yeah.
it is there.
Hmm. So Tuchya and Mithya are again the Swamiji used to describe the Asat aspect only, right?
Tucha is different. Tucha is something which is totally non-existent.
Yeah,
It's
man's horn.
atyanta bhava.
Yeah, Atyanta Bhava, that is man's horns, right? That
Correct.
was the example.
Yeah.
Uh, and just, I don't know whether it is a doubt or like man's horns, if I see it like Asuras they had. So is it due to the time? With the time, it also changes? Or they
It is
had.
just an imagination.
Hmm. Okay.
Like emperor's clothes. So Shankara brings in Purva Paksha by bringing in an objection and answering the objection. So he poses the objection himself. Here he says, when a doubt, the Sat Buddhi, the Is Buddhi always remains. So that the object of the thought, this is a pot, is Asat, because it is always changing, it never remains the same. The Sat Buddhi, on the other hand, is Satya, because whatever that is Sat, that Sat is, it does not undergo any change. A doubt being possible here, Shankara clarifies. Suppose a pot is gone, destroyed, and the pot buddhi, ghata buddhi is gone. You say the pot was, and now the pot is no more. The pot being destroyed, the pot buddhi goes, and the pot proves to be asat. But along with the destroyed pot, does the sat buddhi also go? That is the objection he is raising as Purva Paksha, right? Now, Shankara's response, again, he himself is answering the question he's raised, is that the is buddhi never goes. It is always there. We say the pot is destroyed. The destroyed pot is. The pot is no more. Because something else is, the is buddhi never goes. Only the conditioned sat buddhi is gone. What is this conditioned sat buddhi? Is that the pot is. That is the condition that it's put up on the sat buddhi. The sat buddhi, the exists buddhi, is conditioned by a particular name and form, nama rupa. And when the pot is destroyed, that nama rupa is gone. But the sat buddhi is not gone. It is there to join anything. The is buddhi can join the broken pot is, or anything else is. This is the link between consciousness and awareness. See, consciousness is, it exists throughout. It is not conditioned by anything, but it is the awareness that links the consciousness to something in the world. Like in deep sleep, you're so serene, there are no thoughts at all. But the moment you wake up, your mind goes outwardly. The consciousness moving outwardly is the mind. It starts perceiving things. And then it links, it starts it starts perceiving name and form. And then it gets conditioned. That becomes the conditioned Sat Buddhi. So the is Buddhi can join the broken pot or anything else. The varieties of objects seen by you keep on changing while you remain the same person. That is existence remains, it never goes away. And it is because of you that everything else is. If you are not there, there is no world. The asat world depends upon the sat vastu that is you, that I. If this aspect of the teaching is not clear, you could conclude that Atma, the sat vastu, is zero. The Atma alone is, and everything else is Namarupa, only an addition to that Sat Buddhi. An addition that does not bring about any addition. Just as the pot form does not bring about an addition to the clay, so too the addition of a Nama Rupa to the Sat Buddhi does not bring about any change to it. This is the vision. So you can have any number of universes out there. That will not change the Satvastu. And all those universes are just Nama Rupa. We'll close here today. Consciousness between two thoughts will start. We'll take this up tomorrow. Anyone wants to share anything before we close? So when everything else is gone, so when the pot is gone, the tree is. When the tree is gone, something else is. When everything is gone, I am. Aham asmi. And that is existence, that is truth. The seer of the whole thing, the witness, that exists. Yeah. Does anyone want to share anything? Lot of logical derivation. We'll close here. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.